Good afternoon, everyone, and thanks for joining us today. This is Joe with the LSA, and I'd like to welcome all of you to our webinar series. Today's webinar is titled Enhanced Business Data, Presence Management's Missing Link, and will be brought to you by our guest presenter, Mike from Goodzer. So with that, let's get started. Over to you, Mike.
Thanks very much, Joe. Thanks to you and the whole LSA team for inviting us to present today. A good, I think, information-packed session that addresses enhanced data and presence management. And it's an area that Goodzer has been in for close to 5 years, and so we want to share some of our observations about the opportunities for merchants, for publishers, and issues and challenges that face the industry in general. First, let's define what a local business listing is, and I think most people who are on this webinar probably are familiar with this, but essentially local business listings are profile information about a business designed to provide prospective customers with knowledge to make a purchase decision. And heretofore that has really kind of been defined in two ways, one long-standing and one emerging. The long-standing way that it has been defined is as a basic listing, which has been around in print, in IYP, in maps, etc., for many, many years. And that's essentially basic data like name, address, phone number, hours of operation, payments available, etc. We consider those kind of the table stakes, the basic information that something that a business needs to have to quote-unquote have a listing. And you know, from a consumer perspective, typically a consumer is satisfied by that data when they know what business specifically they want, and they just simply need logistics about that business. So they just need to know kind of where they are, how to get in contact with them, etc. So let's contrast that to what we'll call enhanced listings. So this is a much deeper set of information that includes things like what products you sell, what categories of products you operate in. To me, that's somewhat the bridge between basic and enhanced, but then gets into things, specific things like product availability, images and pictures of the products and services you offer, specific service lists with names of services, subcategory of services, detailed descriptions, and you know, when it makes sense, and for some categories it does and some categories it doesn't, prices. So kind of giving, you know, that was a little bit on, you know, what's in it for the consumer, what that type of information provides to a consumer, the basic versus the enhanced. But let's also talk about a little bit why merchants need enhanced data. So to me, there's kind of 5 core reasons. You could probably take this list much, much further than this. But first of all, for those of you who know me, and there may be people on the line who do, I used to work at Yellow Book, and over 5 years ago we conducted a survey and determined that roughly about half of all SMBs have a website at all. And even of those who have one, you start seeing a tapering off of the amount of information, the pervasiveness and the depth of content on those websites. And there have been countless studies since we did that study over 5 years ago that essentially reinforce the same thing, that say we have still only about half of SMBs, you know, give or take a few percentage points, that even still today have a website of any kind with any degree of substance or depth. If you then take that another level, mobile websites are nearly, for an SMB, are nearly non-existent. The latest study that I've seen is between 6 and 10% of all SMBs have a mobile website or even a desktop website that is remotely optimized for mobile. So the point here is that you know, somewhere between half and 95% of SMBs are not even putting a message out there, period. Then for those who are, in fact, who do have, the 50% who do have a website, there's what I call the sort of SEO game, and this is not meant to slight the appropriate things that any website owner should do to optimize and perfect their website for SEO. But the reality is that, you know, our observation is that when you're trying to rank for, you know, terms like plumber in Chicago or dentist in Los Angeles or things like that, you're not only are fighting against other dentists in Los Angeles and plumbers in Chicago, but you're also fighting against, from an SEO perspective, all of the aggregators out there who have substantial content, who have fresh content, who have a ranking advantage with Google, have a long history with their domain. So the idea from our perspective that even the best website for a local SMB still stands and faces many, many challenges to rank ahead of much larger websites like, you know, YP, Yelp, etc. So that becomes a problem that even when you're doing it right, the chips are stacked against you. The other thing is real distribution of that content. So you've built this beautiful website, you've done SEO perfectly, but you still have to confront the fact that people are searching for things outside of just Google. Now, obviously, Google is the pervasive place where people do a lot of their searching, so again, it is important to understand how to rank properly there. But the reality is that there are you know, dozens of other places where your content, and again, not just your basic content, because most basic listings do appear on most local search sites, as we talked about earlier. But it's important to get the story that you are trying to tell on your website out beyond your website, because if you buy into the idea that the SEO game is hard to play against some of the larger players, the only way to make sure that your enhanced content is out there is to actually physically get them on to other websites. So that's what I mean by real distribution. And then the fifth thing is kind of, okay, can I get my content out there to all these different places, and can I manage it from a single place? Can I change my service list, my product catalog, my pricing, etc., in a single place, and that it is updated at one time across a wider distribution network? And we'll talk about what all of this means. So from a channel management and a message management perspective, how easy is it for me to take the messages that I'd love to sit on my website that maybe not very many people are seeing, and get that same message out to a broader audience where people are actually searching, you know, from a local search perspective. So we kind of talked about this, basic listings. You know, obviously we said what they contain, just the basics. As I said, in terms of local search sites, local directories, etc., millions of local business listings are out there from a basic perspective. And again, they're designed to provide immediate information about, typically to a consumer who is already informed about the business, you know, in terms of what they offer and that sort of thing. Enhanced listings go deeper. They describe and present detailed information on the business's products and services. They are increasing in availability and use. And what I mean by that is, and we'll talk about some of the players who are in this space later in the deck, but essentially what we're saying here is that there are more and more listings that you'll see on local search properties that are beginning to include enhanced product and service information. And that's by virtue of a number of different efforts, including the players in the industry like Goodzer. And again, the information here is intended to create an exact match between exactly what I am looking for, a very specific service. The one I tend to always use is European timing belt replacement. That's a very, very specific thing that an auto repair shop would perform. That's a very, very specific thing that I might need for my car. So what I'm not looking for every auto repair shop in Irvine, California. I'm looking for only those that perform that specific service. So this content, this type of content, is to create a match and a much more targeted match between what a consumer needs and what a service provider offers, obviously, so that you can work down the conversion funnel and actually have a ready-to-buy consumer matched with a merchant who can actually complete the service they're looking for. So just kind of looking at this from a visual perspective, like what does this all mean? On the left, you see a screenshot of what we would call kind of a basic listing, where you've got information that's, like I said before, the name of the business. Perhaps there are some reviews, which is great content, but separate from enhanced listings and enhanced data. The address, the telephone number, and then obviously almost every single search property, whether you're Google, Google Plus pages, whether you're Facebook, whether you're Yelp, whether you're YP, you're trying to create opportunities for consumers to add enhanced content, user-generated content, and so certainly that helps round out the robustness of a profile page. But what heretofore, and looking at this from a retail perspective, the profile pages have lacked is, again, enhanced product data. So this example of panache floral design, on the one hand, a basic listing page says kind of sort of the things that they sell and certainly provides you information about where they are. But when you add enhanced data, enhanced content to it, you start seeing exactly what is on the shelf of that, in this case, of this florist. And certainly the example in retail could be extended to many, many other types of retail businesses. But you get to see exactly what they sell with a visual perspective, when available, and not all retailers are good at this, and this may become a question at the end. What is their available inventory, and of course prices and things like that. So a real kind of rich, deep, informative experience. Taking this example to the services side, it's somewhat similar. In this case, we have a basic business listing for Monroe Veterinary Associates that, again, kind of tells you, if you look, and sorry for the screen if it's not entirely clear, we tried to do the best we could. But if you look at the product and services line on the basic listing, you will see bathing, boarding, hospitalization, etc. So you see about 5 or 6 things, and this is very common when you look at local search properties, that you see about 5 or 6 things that are kind of categories that somebody, whether it was the merchant themselves or there was a sales rep, whether it was customer service, sort of randomly picked that pertain to that particular category and put that information on the profile page. All good information, but just not very complete. And then you contrast that to the information that's on the right, where you've got deep, rich information about the very, very specific categories, subcategories, services, and then in fact detailed descriptions of the services that are offered. And again, in services, it applies much less than in retail, but in services you will find categories that actually show prices as well. For example, it's probably difficult for a fencing contractor or a roofing contractor to provide prices on their website or prices even in enhanced content like this, but a spa or salon that does very sort of structured services, different types of hairstyles and manicures and pedicures, it's very easy for them to put prices out there because the services are very structured in nature, and hence they can put prices. So depending on the category, on the services side, you will see pricing information as well. So overall, what we're kind of getting at here is one of the core value propositions for enhanced data is improving the consumer experience, making it so that the utility of the search experience is sort of fully completed, so that we go from a world where, notionally, like in this case, National Tire and Battery, the first thing that you would think is that National Tire and Battery does tires and batteries. But because we now know that they offer a broader and deeper set of services, a consumer who is looking for specific things like brake service can come to learn that this particular retailer, or the service provider rather, who is perhaps closer to them, in fact does a service that normally they thought that wouldn't be performed, and hence can make an informed purchase decision, can possibly do so more conveniently, possibly do so at a better price, and also can call that merchant with questions at a far deeper point in the funnel process. So overall, just kind of looking at the benefits of enhanced listings kind of across the board. I mentioned earlier merchant conversion. So to oversimplify it, it's quote unquote all about the data. We've have countless amounts of studies that we've conducted that talk about the improved conversion that occurs when you start more narrowly defining what a business does and match that up against very specific search terms. One of the things is to make sure that you avoid being too general, which often is the case with high-level category data, and try to drill down to much more specific information so that you can actually get a true match between the needs of a consumer and the services that are provided by the business. So conversion improvement is a huge part of enhanced data and providing enhanced listings. Obviously, this is truly meant for the true local searcher, where enhanced data I think is less interesting is when you get into kind of call center, national type businesses. It's not to say that they don't have enhanced data and that they don't do very specific things, but this is really, there's an immediacy about this that is very, very conducive to local service providers and really matches up well, and particularly does a great job of targeting and conversion improvement when you marry up the specificity of the need of the service that the local business offers, and of course then the geocentricity of that event. So marrying all those things up from a search and from an advertising perspective creates conversion improvements that are substantial. And really that's, from our perspective at Goodzer, and I think is shared across the kind of the local search space, is that almost, a lot of the top level marketing initiatives that a local business owner engages in, whether it's building a website, social media, search marketing, whatever they do with print and traditional media and mobile, etc., typically is all done to the same end, which is to drive a conversion, whether that conversion is a phone call, in-store foot traffic, or booked appointments. We think those are the top three. Those are the things that we think the SMB really wants out of almost any marketing activity they engage in. And so we found that marrying up the specificity and the services offered by the local merchant and the geocentricity really create that conversion event, because you've got a very, very informed customer. Also from a publisher perspective, revenue production. So let's talk about that for a second. So many of the players in the local search space have a variety of different ad products that they offer to local merchants. Some are basic IYP listings that are subscription based. Some are, at Yellow Book we had golds and silvers and top placements, and those were typically varying in price and could be applied to different categories, but typically subscription in nature. We have what I'd say performance-based, similar IYP type listings that are essentially pay-per-click, different rankings that you can get. The higher you pay per click, the higher you are in some of the paid search rankings, etc. And then you even have other forms of either overall CTA type of placements or pay-per-call type placements that really drive performance and conversion to the actual event that the customer is looking for, which typically is a phone call. In any event, whether you're subscription, whether you're pay-per-click, whether you're pay-per-action or pay-per-call, whatever the model is, these listings create an enormous opportunity to augment the way that those things are measured. So for example, on the subscription side, we know that the depiction of additional services links in search, service menu links, etc., on profile pages, things that guide people towards the menu generate a significant amount of additional clicks. So those who are in the subscription business, who are trying to prove more value to their advertisers, the presence of this enhanced content will do that, because the amount of activity and engagement you get from a consumer to view the exact services that are offered creates a significant lift there. And obviously, if your model is pay-per-click, those are clicks to view this data, and those are things that often can be charged for. And then from a pay-per-call perspective, call tracking numbers can be appended to the service menus, so that if the idea is that somebody's searching in mobile on a mobile app or on a local search property, once they see that, using National Tire as an example, once they see that National Tire does the brake service, they can then make a phone call, and often if that's a pay-per-call customer, that can be a pay-per-call event. So from a revenue perspective, it offers all of those advantages as well. Extensible to mobile is key, because when you provide these services into a mobile environment, one of the things that it does, as I referenced in the revenue portion of the discussion, creates a real opportunity to drive phone calls. We have a number of partners who do have call tracking numbers appended to their service menus, do focus the publishing and display of those menus in mobile, and the click-to-call events are pretty significant. And let's face it, it's convenient for a user. Once you see that a local spa does a 60-minute hot stone massage and there's a call button right there, you're going to tend to call it and book that appointment. And then, of course, this is fairly easy stuff to implement as well. There are the nice thing about enhanced business listings is that they typically are extensions or augmentations to basic business listings that publishers already have. So it's simply a matter of being able to match businesses that are known to have enhanced data with businesses that have basic data that are already on, say, a publisher's website. Once that match is created, there are a number of different ways each of the providers who are in the space avail the enhanced data. That can be a JavaScript widget, that can be an API, that can be a data feed, a co-brand, what have you. But these types of things are easy to implement relative to the payback that you get from it. So looking at who benefits from enhanced data, kind of putting it principally from a publisher and technology perspective. We've talked about local search sites. This also benefits social sites with the availability now of putting this type of content onto Google Plus pages, to putting it on Facebook pages and other social media. Major search engines from the perspective of, particularly from places, pages, and maps. This is critical information for those venues. You already see today in Google and in Bing the presence of food menus that are powered by players in the space like LoQ and Single Platform. So when you're looking for an Italian restaurant, not only do you get a list of Italian restaurants that you can click on, but this same type of enhanced data, which I would argue does in fact extend to food. You will see that Single Platform, LoQ, and a number of other providers have menus that they power on Google and Bing. Mobile apps is pretty obvious. Goodzer powers a number of mobile apps in terms of providing enhanced product and service data. Product search engines have begun to use this because they essentially want a where to buy function. So imagine a world where you are looking for something that traditionally you see from an e-commerce perspective and expect to get it online. Many consumers and many e-commerce sites have begun to add a local where to buy functionality. So from a retail perspective, this enhanced data can be leveraged there as well. Appointment booking services, it makes perfect sense. The service lists that a local business owner has that really constitute their enhanced data that we've been talking about can serve essentially as the list of services available to a consumer, where then a book appointment functionality provided by companies such as MyTime and others can be appended to each of those individual services, so that they then can go through the book appointment funnel all the way through to setting an appointment with a merchant. So marrying enhanced data with appointment booking is what I call somewhat of a no-brainer. It makes perfect sense. Data aggregators as well. Those I would be referring to the info groups, the New Stars, the Axioms of the world. I think are getting messages and requests from their data licensing customers constantly. I would argue more. In other words, give us more types of data, more variety, give us more user-generated, give us more social data, and enhanced data is a big part of that. So I think in the coming year, you will see more large data licensing companies and aggregators offering more enhanced data like what we've talked about here in either their basic data licensing set or in different versions and enhanced versions of that data licensing set. I mentioned Travel Site because I go back and reference LoQ and Single Platform, who've been very, very strong in menu syndication and creating structured menus. So sites like TripAdvisor, for example, will have menu data so that when you're traveling, you have information about not only where the restaurant is or what the restaurant is, but exactly what food do they offer, all the way down to a food menu as you'd expect to see it. So these are places where you also see this type of enhanced content. And then obviously GPS and smartphones. There's still I think a few lingering GPS services out there besides Google and Apple that leverage this type of data as well. So we see the use of this enhanced data in those places as well. So I think it's in general any digital business that targets local consumers is going to want this data. In fact, in many cases, as we'll reference later, are already using this data. And ultimately providing it to consumers. I think at the end of the day, it's really the consumers and the merchants themselves and the engagement that creates that really is what it's all about. So that ultimately the beneficiaries of this are the consumers and the merchants themselves. So overall, just looking at sort of the benefits from a publishing perspective of adding enhanced data. We talked about the revenue opportunities in terms of impressions, clicks, and leads. Again, my time at Yellow Book, there was a sort of never a day went by where reps and customer service and sales managers weren't asking what are the ways that we can, further delight our merchants. And certainly we employed every idea and tactic that we had. Enhanced data at that time was not as available as it is now. So we think that this is a big part of how not only do you drive revenue, but you actually retain merchants through increased engagement in their ads. So overall, the user experience to me at the end of the day is really what causes that. You're just providing more information that a consumer can use to make a purchase decision and creating a marriage between that need and the services that are offered. I'd say the ancillary benefits are we've had publishers report to us that since implementing enhanced data, their net promoter scores have increased. They have created new ad positions, sort of adjacent to these kind of service menus and service lists. They can offer new actual ad products around enhanced data and say, essentially, if you want this more robust version of your story to be told, it can be a new product that can be sold. Overall time in site, the relevancy, and the SEO value, all of those things are lifted by virtue of this enhanced data. And so just kind of looking at some visual examples of where this data shows up and probably places that many of you have interacted with this data before, but we have local product search as evidence on the left there. City Search has done a nice job of implementing product data on their site. As I mentioned, appointment booking. Goodzer has a partnership with MyTime, where Goodzer's data marries up with MyTime's overarching appointment booking platform. So we work together with them. We look at sort of, I'd say, more, how shall we say, horizontal local search sites. We have a partnership with YP to provide enhanced menu data for roughly about 2 million of their listings that include what I talked about earlier, which is the category of services, the individual services offered, descriptions, prices, and you can see it kind of there on this slide. The latest thing that Goodzer has announced, and I certainly wouldn't say that we're the first to do it because I believe LowQ and Single Platform have a similar capability, but that's the ability to add this same services list, like the likes of which you see on the screen, to your Facebook page. So for us, as you go in and manage your content, which is something that I'll get to in just a few moments, in the process of saving any changes, additions, or what have you to your menu, you also have the ability to publish it to your Facebook page, which we think is a significant free distribution opportunity. And then we talked earlier about smartphone maps and search and that sort of thing. So these are some of the use cases and visual examples of them. So some of the new ways to use enhanced listings. We have potential partners coming to us to not only create the visual opportunity for consumers and merchants where they can physically see the products and services on the website, but I think a more powerful thing ultimately is the use of enhanced data on the back end to search. So those on the line who are more on the technology and developer side and the product side will certainly understand this. Probably the easiest example to give here is using product or retail category data in local search. So one example would be if I'm looking for an LG G4 smartphone case. typically not a search that is going to produce very meaningful results in local search. But by taking the enhanced data, the actual product data of a retailer, and appending that into their back-end business profile, it allows that search to then provide results that are meaningful. So in other words, if I'll just use Best Buy because it's a very easy example, if in the past a search like that would return basically nothing, which in many cases is what would happen, by appending this type of enhanced data to the back end and to profiles and actually integrating it with the search algorithm, you can actually produce specific search results that come back with the exact retailers who sell the exact product that you just typed. And I won't give a specific service example, but the same would be true on the services side, that if you take this deeper set of services offered by a merchant, append it to their profile on the back end and integrate it with search, you can do the same. You know, my European timing belt replacement example is a good one. Normally that type of search would probably not produce a lot of meaningful search results, but by integrating this enhanced data on the back end, it in fact would produce much more targeted search results. So that's probably an in the weeds, could be a 2-hour discussion in and of itself, part of the presentation, but it is a way that we have at Goodzer have been seeing requests for our data to be implemented. Online advertising is a big thing. It is in full disclosure, a business that Goodzer is in to some degree. We work with some of the partners who are actually on this call, but essentially it's and I touched on this earlier, it's the notion that the depth and specificity of this data, this enhanced data, has enormous power in terms of the targeting of local ads, whether that's in search, whether that's in local or mobile display, etc. So I think the description here sort of speaks for itself, but the depth and specificity of the data is very powerful in terms of driving conversions, reducing costs, etc. And then overall B2B marketing. In terms of really figuring out, okay, who sells what and how do I market to them and what do I market to them, and specifically choosing what products and services make sense for them, knowing specifically what businesses they are in matters a lot. So I won't get into all the examples of the different types of product and service providers to the B2B marketplace are out there, but knowing that a particular retailer or even a service provider, let's use like appliance repair, knowing that they do in fact fix Kenmore and they do not in fact fix Viking, matters a lot to those kind of in the periphery in the business, in the B2B community, as to what are really truly targets and which companies are not. So just kind of touching on some quote-unquote new uses there. Just drilling down for a second on the online advertising example, this one gets into catalytic converters, catalytic converter repair, and it's very similar to the example that I provided earlier around European timing belt replacement, which is that because we know so much more about what they do, we can target ads much more specifically and ultimately drive them to a landing page or to a message that is very consistent with the original search, which is the original intent or need of the consumer, understanding of what the business does and does not do, and knowing what they don't do often is just as important as what they do, and creating that match and ultimately that conversion. So it really turns, browsers into buyers. And that's really important, because as we continue to move into a performance-based world, really kind of eliminating the noise in the purchase funnel is critical, and this enhanced data on a variety of different ad products does in fact do that. So just taking a look for a second at a few of the players in the space, and I've mentioned some of them here, and there are others besides the 4 that are listed here. But I just will step through them really quick. Obviously, you've heard information today about Goodzer, and we'll do a little summary on Goodzer towards the end. And as for us, I think what's just kind of point out some of the differences. Goodzer is unique, I think, in this space because we have such a depth on the retail and product data side that is generally not seen in the industry. We also have over 2 million service-based businesses in our database as well in terms of enhanced content and service menus. So that's certainly the product and the overall volume and depth of data is something that's unique to Goodzer. Our service to merchants in terms of using and interacting with their data currently is a free service. If you look at LoQ just underneath, LoQ is a wonderful company. They were, I think, one of the pioneers in this space. They focused very heavily initially around restaurants. They then kind of moved to spas and beauty and have slowly continued to move into other service categories as well. They were acquired about probably about 21 months ago by GoDaddy, as many of you know, and they do have a wonderful platform. It is focused in a smaller set of categories, but they are very, very effective in those categories, and that is a service that is charged for. Single platform, not to offend anybody, but they are in many respects very similar to LoQ. They also started out specializing in restaurant menu structuring and digitization and distribution, and also have begun entering the services space as well, and they also have a monthly charge for their services. And to get into, if you're interested in learning about their services and what the fees are and that sort of thing, I encourage you to visit their websites. They have good information on those websites about the specifics of their service. And then I'd say the 800-pound gorilla in the space is Yext. And I think Yext, historically had two service offerings in this area that kind of touch on the two categories that I started this presentation with, which is on the basic side and on the enhanced side. On the basic side, you have Yext Power Listings. On the enhanced side, although I don't see it mentioned this way by name very often anymore, at one point they had a offering called Power Listings Plus. And so from our perspective, Power Listings is sort of the basic listings management and syndication product, and Power Listings Plus was then adding the enhanced, like the products, the services, and that sort of thing. I'm not sure they break down that service by those two names anymore. I think they encourage their customers to manage all of their data, whether it's basic or enhanced, through the Yext platform. But Yext is a company that's been around for probably close to 10 years, has been very successful, started in the pay-per-call business and moved into the listings and syndication management side of it, and have been, like I said, very, very successful. And I think probably the difference between them and the other three on here is just kind of the focus on an important role in the local search ecosystem of managing local business listing, the basic business listings across multiple properties when they are constantly being changed, updated, and what have you. So to have a platform that allows you to manage that in one place is fantastic. And all of these companies have platforms that allow you to manage your data, tell your story, and then share your story to syndicate it out to multiple websites. And there's not 100% overlap between all of the different websites that you can syndicate your data to from these four different players. There is some overlap, but there's also some that don't overlap. For example, TripAdvisor is a really good example where I think LoQ has that one exclusively, and you'll find little pockets of distribution differences between the four companies. But I'd say the main local search sites, to some degree, all four of these companies have some form of partnership or relationship with. So I mentioned about kind of a platform and listings management and enhanced data management. So earlier this year, and like I said in the previous slide, all four of those companies have an interface that a customer, a merchant can log into and manage their information. And all of those platforms work fairly well. They are all built differently, but they, at the end of the day, are trying to accomplish some similar things in terms of updating your basic business listing information, and then when a customer wants to add or create or manage the enhanced listing data. Goodzer is a little bit unique in that our platform drives you straight towards managing your enhanced data. That's the part that we focus on. That's the part that we strive to be good at, and what our partners kind of know and expect expect out of us. So we have merchants come in and they enter their business information. We do a phone verification to prove that they are in fact the business owner. Once that verification is completed, they then go into the Merchant Center service menu editor, and they typically will already see all their services already there with a service name, with a description, with a price, and they can go in and start adding, removing, changing, editing, updating, adding pricing, what have you. And essentially hit save, and once they hit save, they have the all of that content is immediately then, I shouldn't say immediate in all cases, that's probably a question that I'll get at the end, but that information immediately gets saved to our database and ultimately gets published out to our publisher network, so that all those changes happen very, very quickly as it relates to being exposed to consumers. You'll also see a horizontal blue button on the Merchant Center image here. That is where the customer is allowed to go and update or create their menu on Facebook. So before they kind of quote-unquote leave the Merchant Center, they're provided the opportunity to put that menu up on Facebook as well, which has been a significant enhancement for our platform that we will actually be announcing in the next week. So that's kind of how our platform works. One side note for Goodzer, in basic business listing information, we do get requests from merchants quite frequently about updating their basic business listing info. It is something that we do take the updates, but not all of our partners take the basic business listing update from us, because they have different data providers ranging from the ones I mentioned earlier, Info Group, Axiom, Newstar, even Yext. So at some point, they probably will take basic business listing updates from Goodzer as well, because we have merchants literally going in and directly making those changes. But right now, that is not really an area that we partner with local publishers with specifically. It's really about that enhanced data, as I've mentioned earlier in the presentation. So just from a merchant perspective, why should they do this? I mentioned at the beginning kind of some of the challenges that local merchants face with, how rich and deep is their website, if they have one at all, how widely is it seen, are they in mobile, all of these things. At the end of the day, no matter which of these providers they are working with, Goodzer, Yext, Single Platform, LoQ, et cetera, having a data store of your local business information is a very, very, very good idea, because there is no way that a single website can really tell the whole story from the, well, A, many SMBs aren't telling the story, and B, the SEO fight that they find themselves in. So to have a single place where they can update this information and confidently know that it's going to wind up, A, on their websites, and many of the providers I listed have tools that allow you to actually back updates from their platforms back into the website, but also out into all the key distribution points where people are actually doing searches, ranging from Facebook to Google to YP, Yelp, etc. So to me, that's the biggest part of it. And ultimately, just controlling your message and having kind of a one-stop shop to do that ultimately is what's in it for the merchant. It's just too easy to affect a widespread change across the local search ecosystem. This is going to, I think, become the norm of how people ultimately manage their data from a merchant perspective. So a little bit about us. For those of you who either do or do not know about Goodzer, we've been around about 5 years, little less. We are a technology company that automates a whole variety of processes to identify local business information, sort through it, ultimately aggregate it, structure it, clean it up, and then ultimately publish it into the local publisher ecosystem, as I've kind of described already, and also create a number of different marketing and advertising solutions that leverage this data that ultimately benefit the local merchant in terms of the cost and quality and efficiency of creating local conversions. So that's a little bit about us. Just looking at us, a snapshot of the business from a data perspective. What enhanced data is in our database. On the product and retail side, we've got 500,000 store locations, 100 million unique products across those 500,000 physical store locations. We have 80 million images, and I bring this up because a number of publishers have asked, how visual is your content? Well, particularly on the retail side, it is extremely visual. And then we have over 2.5 billion inventory items in our database covering pretty much any consumer product category there is. On the services side, we have 2 million service merchant locations. So that's, lawyers, doctors, plumbers, roofers, every sort of typical, I'd say, kind of, IYP local search category. Those are the categories we focus on. We have over 25 million local service offers, and we have over 3,000 subcategories across top-level categories like the ones I mentioned: dentists, autos, auto repair, lawyers, contractors, etc. So a very vast and deep database, and that's partly what we bring to our publisher partners. So really kind of just winding up on the sort of PowerPoint portion of this discussion. But at the end of the day, enhanced profiles, increase your reach. In our case, that reaches 200 million users across the Goodzer network, allows you to tell your story and do so very quickly and easily from one place. And ultimately, the most important thing is it enables decisions. A consumer who has a specific need now knows exactly who, and as I said earlier in the discussion, who does not do a particular service that I need. And like I said, oftentimes, especially when it comes to efficiency, elimination of noise, and conversion improvement, knowing that somebody doesn't provide a service for you is often just as useful as finding ones who do. And then here's a little snapshot of the Goodzer Partner Network. For those partners on the phone, we appreciate you and glad you took time to hear the story that to a large degree you've heard before. But the wonderful media, which represents several hundred local newspaper websites, we have a partnership with them that's focused on retail data. My Time, Avantar, Facebook, City Search, YP, Haibu. These are all, and others, we just couldn't fit them all on one slide. And we appreciate you, and I appreciate everybody's time here today, hearing me talk about enhanced data, the importance of it. It's an area that we could go into a lot more depth on, so I tried to at least cover as much at a high level as I could in our short time together. But thank you to everybody for listening today and your time.
Okay, so thanks, Mike, for conducting today's webinar, and thanks to all of you for attending today. If you have any questions or would like to be connected with today's speaker, simply email us at webinars@thelsa.org. Also, for a look at what's coming and to access all of our past webinars, visit www.thelsa.org/webinars. So thanks again, everyone, and have a great day.